Our next speaker is Dr. Jain Sarvate, sir. He is heading the Divya Drishti Lasers Private Limited. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. After hearing this discussion of a small pupil, I will be telling you the case of a complicated cataract in a seclusio pupillae. This is the uveitic 43-year-old female with a chronic uveitis, the complicated cataract with the occlusio pupillae, and a planned phacoemulsification has been planned. So in this case, as Dr. Rajan was saying, I right from the beginning decided that this will require iris hook rather than any other pupillary device, expanding device. The first challenge was the breaking the pupillary membrane. I was intending to use a micro scissor, but I was not sure whether there were any synecdoche, extensive synecdoche between the capsule and the iris. So I wanted to do a blunt spatula separation. This separation with the help of viscoelastic. I was partially successful, and after some time, nudging the membrane, I could have one opening, and after that I removed all the synechia in one quadrant, then from the other side I separated the iris from the anterior capsule. Now the second challenge was the pupillary expansion device. As I told you, in such cases no other device I was thinking, because I wanted to do a stretch pupilloplasty with the help of these two pupillary expander iris hooks. I am doing this stretch pupilloplasty, and now I am introducing other iris hooks. Again, I'm not. I am giving only a half of it, half of the stretch now. And after some time, when I know that I have not caught any capsule or any other tissue, I am stretching all the all the hooks, and now I will be performing phacoemulsification in this dilated pupil. Here the capsule also is very inelastic, thick because of the chronic uveitis, but I could perform a good capsulorhexis. And after performing the capsulorhexis, the nucleus I wanted to separate properly by hydrodissection, because I did not want to have more stress on the zonules while performing the phacoemulsification. Fortunately, I could do a good nucleus rotation all around, and then nucleus with a sharp chop or vertical chop and a direct chop technique. I did multiple pieces of this nucleus. Here again, a bigger opening of the pupil did help me in deciding the exact plane of action of removal of the nucleus. The capsule, the aspiration of the cortex also had to be gentle, because again I was not sure whether I would again damage the zonules while doing that. So I was very slow and meticulous in this. And after this, I implanted a foldable IOL, and now I removed these after implanting the IOL and not before, because I wanted to be sure that this IOL was in the bag. Now, whether to do a pupilloplasty in such situation, I decided against, because she was under steroid cover, and that's why I deferred this choice at a later stage, and the patient could get a very good 6/18 vision unaided on the in the first 3 or 4 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain, for a wonderful surgical video. I would, one or two things before we are going to go on to the next session, which doesn't deal with iris hooks. For the sake of the audience, I think we should place the iris hooks first and then tighten it. It should not be that each is being placed and tightened and then we go on to the other, because that could cause a sphincter tear. That's one point. I do think there is a big role of the subincisional iris hook also, because there is sometimes the iris gets to so stretched between the two iris hooks placed, and it gets difficult to insert your phaco probe, especially in small eyes. And the other thing with Dr. Jain's case, I felt that I would go and try to release the synechiae by going underneath, but I wouldn't want to stretch the pupil at all, because in these complicated cataracts, there is excessive iris manipulation. You could have CME. So I would go straight to placing the iris hooks. I want the thoughts of the expert panel in this.
I think, Chitra, I would agree with you on that we can put the iris hooks there and also not stretch the pupil so much. But I think more importantly in these cases is the post-operatively, what are you going to give? Because post-operatively, again, the pupil is going to, if the primary pathology is not taken care of, uveitis, etc., then it will again come back to the same thing. So that I think is very important post-operative. I've seen a lot of cases where they have capsular phimosis and they come back, to their pre-operative seclusio pupilli kind of a thing. So that needs to be prevented.
So I think in these cases, it is as important as in the case of hyphus to start the patients on pre-operative steroids.
They were on steroid, under steroid cover only this was done.
And operatively, I think NSAID as also steroids, as also cycloplegics.
Full dose of steroids were given. And another thing, I did my capsular axis in a bigger manner. I mean, almost 5.5 millimeter capsular axis, because I was expecting this capsular phimosis and other complications. And there was a very tough membrane. Actually, afterthought, I thought that I should have used a micro scissor to cut this membrane, but I was not sure whether it was touching the anterior capsule or not. That's why I did not use it, but I could have done that also.
But in this case, you had to use devices, but then, sometimes you're quite pleasantly surprised in situations like this, when you release the synechiae and take away the membrane and fill in some high molecular weight viscoelastic, you get a nice big dilatation and no device is necessary. And as you rightly emphasized, I think in these cases, getting a big capsular axis is important, because there's a great tendency for capsular contraction. And most of
she did have a all-round synechiae, posterior synechiae, which I had to separate.
So there's no question of dealing with, doing a pupilloplasty in these cases, because less we handle the iris, the better. I would rather have a irregular pupil in these cases rather than do more maneuvers. And in these cases, I think it's also important to investigate about what really caused this, because, most of us cataract surgeons are able to deal with these cataracts, but then we also need to look at the primary pathology, because as was mentioned, unless we take care of that, sometimes you could end up with difficult post-operative situations.
This is a typical situation. For last 3 years, she has been investigated all the time, but without any result. And all the investigations were, they were uncommented. There was nothing we could point out. And there are so many such cases we come across.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Jain. Anaga, can
I add one point, Chitra?
One small point, yes.
One small point. No, just nice video, Jayant. I just want to say, in seclusio pupillae, it's not enough that you release only the synechiae in the pupillary margin. You need to go with the rod all the way underneath the iris, all the way to the root of the iris. You did that?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
No, I did go all round 360 degrees from the slit which I made.
Sorry, I had gone to the restroom at that time.
One point which I would like to add is that we should know that these patients are one of the few conditions which have predisposition to post-operative hypotony. So seclusio pupil is one, IOP 6 millimeter or less is another, phacodonosis. So UBM should also be done in these patients to really find out whether the choroid is diffusely thickened or not. So these are a few things which should also be borne in mind.
Actually, we had done a B scan and not UBM, but the B scan did not show any posterior pathology. That was done. All the investigations were done before taking her for cataract. She had perfectly
Gives enough information. You are right, Dr. Jain.